Yo, my peoples, what's up? Welcome to 5 and 9 on the One Stop Co-op Shop, where I go over 5 key aspects of a game in about 9-ish minutes. Today I'm taking a look at the Adventures of Robin Hood from Cosmos. This is a cooperative game of 2 to 4 players in which you are starring Robin Hood and Maid Marian and Will Scarlet, all the familiar characters, in a big story-based adventure. Not a lot of high combat in this one, more on the story adventure end. We've gotten a lot of those, and I'll show you what this one does different and how it matches up. Disclosure, I was provided a review copy for this game. My number 5 is a pro, which is the tutorial and on-ramp system and how it increases complexity throughout the missions. So you're going to open the box, you're going to put together these 8 puzzle piece map things, and you're going to see a giant map in front of you. But the rule book is very clear at the very beginning. You must not read this booklet before playing the game. Play the game first. The game basically comes out of this storybook, and the first mission, which is the escape, is going to walk you through step by step what happens as you take turns. The first mission's on rails, but it's pretty short, and there's some story development going on. Second mission more, and you get to the fourth mission, you have everything. By the fourth mission is where you get your personal player powers, which if you know anything about teaching, I'm a huge person on game teaching, teach player powers last. My number 4 is a pro with a caveat. That is the board geometry and the movement. No hexes, no grid system, or anything like that. The board is basically divided up into impassable territory, shade, and clearing. So shade is where you want to be most of the time because, you know, the various things can hit you. If you're in a clearing, it's usually because you're going for something and you're risking being exposed by the guards. So you kind of navigate those things. How do you get from one place to another? You have these movement tokens right here. So then I would, if I wanted to mug this guard, I would put these 2 right there, and I would make sure that my end piece was touching the guard, and then I would initiate combat, which I'll show in just a minute. The con there is that it's very imprecise. So let's say you were a little bit out there and you were trying to make your move. You would be here and just outside of reach. You might get some, begging, rules lawyering at the table. Oh, I'm so close, blah, blah. That's a little bit annoying. But there's ways to mitigate that too. If you're just short of something, you have this this piece over here, which is longer, and you can kind of cover the distance. You won't be able to do what the game calls gather strength, so you'd be a little bit weaker for using the longer piece. But so that's a good trade-off as well. The board is well designed. The geometry works. I love it, but I don't know if everybody's going to love it. My number 3, a definite pro, is the bag of holding. So much of the game gets operationalized out of this thing. I think it's really, really cool how compact and neat it is. First things first, there is the variable player order. So then you would have these discs would be your players. So you pull it and then you'd go. This would be the bad dude walking the land. This would be kind of a town phase. Let's say I pulled the red. The next thing that I would pull out of the bag are the enemy spawns. See, these are chips. And then I would pull out one of these chips that would govern an enemy spawn. So that's all in there. Last thing that I would pull out of here are the combat cubes on those occasions where I want to engage in combat. I would take cubes out of the bag, 3 of them. If I had a violet, that would be no good. But if I got a white, then I would take them out. Like in similar games like Andor, the point is not to beat the monsters or the guards or anything. They're more kind of to manage a threat. You beat them, the land gets more hope. You're really trying to accomplish a story mode, which I'll talk about in the next section. But because the monsters aren't that big a deal, I like the fact that the combat is so smooth and clean. The combat system is pretty random because there's draws, but you can manipulate what's in the bag, put extra whites in by taking certain actions, sacrifice your attacks, get some violet cubes out of the bag so you improve your chance of drawing white cubes. Very clean, very simple. My number 2 might be a little bit provocative, but it is a pro. That is the story. So it is delivered through this choose your own adventure style book, which has ribbons so that you can keep your place and everything. So I thought it was pretty well delivered. The difficulty is the translation. I think that there were some very rough patches, words that don't quite make sense, rules that are present in the rule book and not in the storybook. So you might have a little bit of rough parts there, especially in the early going. Once you get going, once you get into the story, I have heard some notable reviewers say that this game's story was generic, that it doesn't offer anything new, the writing is bad, and it's just, they didn't have fun. Or they didn't just think it was a very good, well-delivered story. And for me, I don't know what they were expecting. It's a board game. I have never read anything even resembling Shakespeare or Neil Gaiman or anything out of a board game. What I want is the basic sense of what Robin Hood is. And, for the audience, they're going to be maybe exposed to Robin Hood for the first time. So does it give them Robin Hood? I think so. Rob from the rich, steal from the poor. Big bad sheriff is exacting taxes. And here I am showing the little folk. And there's all sorts of ways that they get manipulated. Sometimes they disappear. You have to find them. And they pop up in other places and surprises. So I actually found interacting with these NPCs throughout the 7 story campaign to be very satisfying, and the story was charming. So for me, pro. My far and away number one is the tactile nature of the board. Every story game has a main way in which it transmits its narrative, whether it's through text that is read aloud or read off a page or an app increasingly in story games. Here, it's so much emerges from the board play. So I'm walking around, I'm doing my thing, and then the enemy phase comes up and it's like, whoa, a noble has showed up. I get to change what I'm doing, mug this person, take their stuff, and then they go away. Or I've taken a risk because I want to do a thing, but then the board gives me surprise. A guard pops up and then it would arrest them. And that is the push and pull of the game. I know that can happen, so I'm making a risk. And honestly, I can't show how much, this will change, the castle will change. Board 7 does not look like Board 1 in terms of the missions. This game, the tactile story that emerges, a massive winner for me. I will say, though, from a product design perspective, some of the pieces you're going to have a little bit of a hard time with. Like, for me, guard number 5 is messed up from constantly flipping it and having to take it out. I recommend playing this game with somebody who has good nails or someone who could lift these things pretty easily. That could be a con for people because you want to keep your board pristine. You don't want a board that looks all mussed up like that. So that's the thing to be aware of. But for me, the story that emerges from this play makes all that worth it. So I'm going to go ahead and expound on that number 1 because I think that is going to determine how much people are taken by this game, how much they get into that board play. So I play a lot of story-driven games. I'm a thematic gamer, story-driven gamer. A lot of people know. I've played a lot of app-driven games, especially recently. So it was so refreshing to get back to a pure tactile experience and in a way that makes me use my hands. And I will admit it took me a little while to get into it. My first couple of games, the rails are really tight. It's like, okay, what's going on? By the time I got to a couple more options, more surprising things happened on the board, that was it. I was so taken. I finished this game solo, playing 2 characters, all 7 missions in about 24 hours. It was really a great experience. And, I can't wait to go back. I might not play the same adventures you can. There are other paths that you can take. But, if this game has expansion, totally. I would love to come back into this world. So if the board play isn't for you, then I don't think this game is for you. I really do think so much of it rises and falls. If you're not taken by the board play, then some of the other issues are going to loom a lot larger. The nature of the combat, it can be random, the imprecision of the movement, the quality of the story, which I think is a perfectly fine family level story, but not everybody feels the same way. So I'll leave you with that. If you like tactile story-based adventures, if you want something that is good for your family, I can highly recommend Adventures of Robin Hood. If you can change your mind, you can change the world, people. So until next time, later, everybody.